Hello and welcome to this short interview with two fabulous musicians joining us from the exotic climes of Reading. We've got Roger May, who is the composer of the Concerto for Euphonium, which will be played on Saturday, the 10th of February, by soloist James Blackford, who's just around the corner in Australia. So before we start, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Andrew Taylor. If you don't know me, I'm the conductor of the Aldworth Philharmonic Orchestra in Reading in the UK. And it's my great pleasure to be accompanying James for the second performance of Roger's Euphonium Concerto, which was premiered all of 21 years ago. So let's start with James, because frankly, James, us Reading boys aren't so interesting as you. Tell us about where you are now, and I'm really interested to know how you've kind of gone from Australia to the UK and back to Australia, where you're now working, and then you're going to come back all the way back to the UK for this concerto. So tell us about this.
Yeah. Hi, Andrew. So I'm in Melbourne at the moment. That's where I'm based. I've lived a few different cities in Australia, but definitely Australian born, as you'll hear from the accent. So in 2019, I first went to the UK, to Manchester, to study a Master of Music at the Royal Northern College of Music. 2020, we had a little pandemic around the world, you might remember. So I went back to Australia, and in doing so, I ended up joining the Royal Australian Air Force in the band. So I went through basic training, joined the band, moved to Melbourne, and then eventually got time off to come back to the UK. And that was the second trip in the UK. And finished my masters and did a whole bunch of amazing performances and had some great opportunities, a lot of brass band playing and travel and all that sort of stuff. And then came back to Australia to work full time in the Air Force. And this Sunday, I'll be arriving back in the UK for a short little tour. First up with the Aldworth Philharmonic, playing Roger May's Euphonium Concerto.
Amazing. So we've got rehearsals this Sunday, and I'm looking forward to them. What time does your flight arrive on Sunday morning?
6:30 a.m.
6:30 a.m. So that's what it must be, about 21, 22 hours of traveling.
Yeah.
And then in the afternoon, straight into the orchestra rehearsal. We will have plenty of tea available and other caffeine based products to get you through that, James. Don't worry, we'll look after you. Excellent. And just going back, way back, I guess, when did you start playing the euphonium, and what made you choose the euphonium?
Yeah, so I started playing the euphonium in grade 5, which is about 10 years old. I actually started on the violin originally, a couple of years earlier, because that was the instrument that you could start a bit earlier in Australia, in Queensland, where I grew up. And then I think I got given the euphonium because essentially I was the big kid. I was the biggest kid, and they were like, "Oh, well, he can carry it home, so we'll give him that one." And I've loved it ever since, and couldn't think of doing anything else.
Well, I mean, I think that's a nice answer to a question: what made you choose the euphonium? And I'm going to throw that straight over to Roger now. So, Roger, if you can remember back to 21 years ago, what made you choose the euphonium for a concerto?
Yeah, I think I can barely remember back that far, but I was fortunate enough to be the Aldworth Philharmonic's first ever Young Composer Award winner. So on the back of that, I was commissioned to write this composition. So there was I believe, a friend of yours, Andrew, was it?
Yep.
Yeah, Chris. So
Chris Smith, yeah, the original soloist, who I should add is hoping to come to hear the concert, James. So that's all good.
So yeah, it was all set up for me, and it was obviously quite an interesting instrument to write for, something a bit different.
So the true answer to the question really is you had no choice. We chose it for you. But yeah, no, Chris was still is a very charismatic musician. He lives in the north of England now, his native north of England. And yeah, hopefully he's coming down for the gig. What was it like composing for the euphonium? Did it produce any special challenges for you as a composer?
I think kind of writing a concerto was quite a challenge for me just generally because it was something that I hadn't done before. So having that solo line plus the whole orchestra is quite a big thing. In terms of the instrument, I mean, I'm a trumpet player, so I remember talking to Chris quite early on, and he said, "Well, basically anything you can play on a trumpet, I can play on a euphonium." So he set me up with a challenge. But yeah, it seemed to work all right. He seemed to be comfortable with it, so yeah, talked a little bit about it through the process. But I think obviously being a brass player and having some knowledge was helpful.
And how's that manifest itself, James, in the solo part for you? Have you found learning the concerto?
Yeah, it's been great. It's been really enjoyable. I actually really love the piece. It's got some great, beautiful moments. It's got some fast, exciting stuff. The range of the piece is really great. So it's been a great process, just getting stuck in. Yeah.
And I mean, have you played many euphonium concertos in your short career so far?
Yeah. So I've performed a few with some brass bands and with piano, and yeah, I mean, we've sort of euphonium being a relatively, I guess, new instrument as far as being a solo instrument, and in that regard, I think the first euphonium concerto written by Joseph Horowitz, sort of, I think 40 years ago. But since then, we've got quite a few ones. This piece, Roger's piece, really reminds me of Philip Wilby concerto. I think there's sort of a few things. The muted part in the middle movement, sort of quite similar to the Wilby concerto, which is quite a big one in the repertoire for euphonium.
So your euphonium, presumably, is slightly less comedic, but still quite big. As comedic as a tuba mute, where they basically have to get a forklift truck to lift it into the instrument. But presumably, it's quite
Absolutely.
a big affair. Yeah,
absolutely. Actually, it reminds me of the Martin Ellerby euphonium concerto, which has muted in the second movement, and you've got 2 bars of very, very quick tempo to take it out. So I performed that with brass band, and I actually turned to the solo cornet player who pulled the mute out for me, so I could quickly stand back up and keep playing.
Excellent. I might have to get some teamwork going in this as well. So this is part of a program, as you can see from my background, called Cinematic Landscapes. So the premise of the program, for anybody who's thinking about coming along, is that we've got a couple of pieces, including newly announced the theme from Jurassic Park, a couple of John Williams pieces, and of course he's the master of writing for cinema. And his music is well loved. Actually, it's the first time APO's ever played any John Williams. I went to a concert band concert a few months ago, and they said every program's got to have a piece of John Williams in it. And I thought, yeah, 21 years, and we're finally getting it on the program. I have to say, one of the reasons I wouldn't say I've been reluctant, but I've never made John Williams' piece come onto the program is because it's really hard. So we're looking forward. We're working through Jurassic Park and Adventures on Earth from ET, which is my absolute all-time favorite John Williams score. But apart from that, there's no other pieces of film music on the program. But all the pieces that are the other pieces on the program they sound like they kind of got that cinematic sweep, I call it, the sort of the grand melodic lines and so on. So Roger, this is very much your style. You've written a few pieces for us now, and apart from the eerily spooky variation on Summers Are Coming In, where we had things like bowed harmonics on a vibraphone, if I remember rightly, which was had to be, that technique for that had to be looked up by one of our percussionists. Your style is quite sort of film musicy, would you say? I mean, how would you describe your compositional voice, if we can put it like that?
Yeah, I mean, I studied film music in my master's degree, so I did a straight degree to start with composition and orchestration, and obviously playing trumpet, you kind of pick up all sorts of different styles. You've got the orchestral, but you also got a lot of jazz. I played in a soul band, so I had lots of different influences, and then the MA in film music. So I think it's kind of all of those things joined together really that shaped me and my voice.
Yeah, we can see there's a lot of different styles within the sort of your language, which is, as somebody who's conducted a number of your works, is very familiar to me now. This is obviously the first work of yours I conducted. It starts off that, so for anybody who doesn't know the piece, a quick guide to the music. and please do chip in, both of you, with your descriptions of your favorite bits. So it's 3 movements, which is fairly standard for a concerto, a piece for solo instrument and orchestra. And we kind of start off very soft and mysterious, and have a sort of mysterious piccolo theme with lots of colorful woodwind figuration, and then a second theme on the clarinet. We have quite a long exposition section, as it's called, before we finally get to the euphonium part. And then we have this wonderful build up to a really exciting big climax, which leads us then into some very different music, some really tricky rhythms for the orchestra, especially the pizzicato. Getting that together is all good fun. And then, Roger, we have what I think I would almost call it's almost like a fairground ride, where you sort of go around and you sort of hear the pipe organ in the middle of the galloping horses. This sort of 3/8 section. What's that meant to sort of depict? Or it doesn't have to depict anything, of course. It can just be music. But why did you go in that direction? Can you remember back that far?
I've got to be honest, I can't remember. I mean, I think I wanted a contrasting section, and you got the big, broad sort of theme, expansive kind of melodic line at the beginning. So I think I just wanted to have that contrasting section in the middle, and that's where I ended up.
Yeah, it's really good, and it sort of starts off scored for a little string quartet before moving back to the rest of the strings, and then we sort of get back into the opening material. But there's lots of drama. You say it's very expansive. There's also lots of calm moments as well of repose. And James, I think the second movement really, it feels the most like what I perceive to be brass band music, and the sort of the sound world, albeit of course with the addition of strings. Is that something that sort of resonates with you in terms of the feel of the music? Does it have brass band overtones at any point?
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing. As soon as you're writing a euphonium concerto, there's going to be that sort of brass band influence. Absolutely. I just really love that sort of opening melody that the euphonium has. It's just a really beautiful, lyrical, expressive line, and that's sort of very, very idiomatic for euphonium and brass band as well.
And the euphonium sound, it can be quite delicate, full of vibrato, and for what looks like an enormous work, for a fairly, not a small instrument. Let's put it that way. It's not as enormous as a tuba, obviously, or anything like that, but it has a very precious sound, which I think really suits that second movement theme. So presumably, you like to play on that a little bit in terms of the colours.
Absolutely. I think it often surprises people that don't know the instrument well, what the sort of sound capabilities are. They sort of expect, I mean, essentially when you're describing it to most people, it's a small tuba, because that's what it looks like. But really, internal capabilities and the sound quality, it's got so much more than that. And that sort of light, delicate style, it's something I really love playing and love performing, and just gives a really great opportunity for that.
I think for me, that's some of the most effective writing, Roger, is the way that you do that. But there's this extraordinary section in the second movement where we have lots of string harmonics, the harp sort of glistening up and down gently with I think with a little sort of plectrum to get a little sort of spiky sound off the string. And that's where the mute goes in the euphonium, and we get this amazing ethereal sound. Before we then get the most extraordinary contrast, and what I'm going to call what we've nicknamed in rehearsals the Club Tropicana section. So that's after the wham hit, of course. But it's quite rhythmic, and suddenly thrown into a world of rhythm with some bongos and some shakers and stuff. Roger, what were you thinking? I mean, it's brilliant. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. That sounds like I'm saying, are you mad? But it's such a contrast. Was that just what you're looking for? Just a contrast and a bit of fun?
Yeah, I think so. And again, just sort of my background and playing in wind bands, and I have got a few friends who are percussionists. You know, being a brass player, you tend to kind of congregate with those sort of like-minded, slightly crazy people around you. And my sister was a percussionist, so I think all of that got chucked in, and yeah, just,
Brilliant.
I didn't realise it was quite so Club Tropicana, but I'm gonna have to listen back with new, yeah.
I actually get really West Side Story sort of vibes from that section.
Okay.
But
I think I like that
about it. Yeah.
It's something I really like about the piece, though. I think it doesn't take itself too seriously. It's got these really beautiful, expansive moments, these sort of serious lines, and it sort of cuts away to something that's a bit more lighthearted and cheeky. So it's just
I think that's great. And actually, in a way, it's almost like but it's not like, but it's a little bit like the contrast enables you to actually then get more out of the sort of slightly more emotional, fragile music that we heard at the beginning of the movement. And you meet that music is then met with the epic sound of the sweeping strings, which just it's the brass band world, but with added symphonic strings. Is absolutely brilliant. And then it melts away into this extraordinary cadenza. How have you been getting on with that, James? Are we going to hear it on Sunday? Are we going to revel in it?
Oh, I haven't thought about whether I'll play it for you on Sunday. It might be dependent on the jet lag after the flight. But no, I love it. It's fun. It's exciting. I've been tossing up with. I mean, you can obviously veto this with a few little adjustments to the cadenza with a bit of. We've got this sort of minor pentatonic bit towards the end, whether I sort of fiddle around with that a bit more, and then also maybe adding a few little cheeky multiphonics. But I think it's almost like it's
somebody who doesn't know what multiphonics are. What do you mean by multiphonics?
So multiphonics is a thing you can do on brass instruments, where you sing as well as play a note. So you sort of you can have sort of two notes together at the same time.
That sounds amazing.
It's a very cool effect. It's a cool effect.
I can tell you that we can do multiphonics. I'm an oboist, and I sometimes do multiphonics as well, but not deliberately. So the cadenza leads directly into. Now, Roger, you're saying your sister was a percussionist. Did you consult her about the triangle technique for the opening of the third movement?
I don't think I did, no, but I certainly obviously aware of the possibilities. And I think the triangle is such a fun instrument, because people always talk about it as being, you know, these people at the back of the orchestra, and all they do is hit a triangle, and it's so easy to do. And I think, you know, having something a bit more interesting and not just a little ting here and there.
Yeah, no, it's what I would call a virtuoso percussion triangle part. It's worth hearing. I mean, I've got half an idea. I don't know whether or not the percussionists who are coming to play it will agree on this, but I've got half an idea, because you've got a pair of triangles and they basically alternate. It'd be really great to have them sort of antiphonal on either side of the stage, sort of battling out against each other. That would be amazing if we can make that work. That would be.
I can't remember if we did it. I think.
Oh no, I don't think we did. No, I think Alex and Ben were the percussionists, and I think they stuck together. I think possibly the logistics of it were such that they needed to be on hand to play other instruments, and they were all located in the same place. So we'll have to see if that works, but it's definitely worth a go. And James, it strikes me. Well, you can tell me. Is the most virtuosic writing in the third movement, or is it pretty, standard across all of the movements? There's sort of certain level of difficulty to it, because there look like there are a lot of notes in that last movement.
Probably it's a good statement, actually. Just that sort of, we almost call it an ostinato that comes back a few times, is really exciting. That sort of that writing, it's quite, virtuosic, and I mean, I absolutely love the last couple of pages. It's just so expansive, just singing over the top, and really, really intense, and it's great.
And it gets more and more frenetic. We're gonna have to manage our emotions, I think, to make sure it's all under control whilst making it sound really exciting. but it has the most brilliant climax and fantastic orchestration to still let the solo part shine through. But I don't want to spoil the surprise of the ending, because well, apart from the fact that I hope we all get there at the same time, that'll be an advantage. I'm sure we will. Well, brilliant. Thank you so much for chatting to us, both of you. And just to reiterate the details of the concert, if I lean over, maybe you can see that it's Saturday, the 10th of February at the Great Hall of the University of Reading. It's a very reverberant acoustic, not reverberant, resonant acoustic. James, you'll love it. It's that you get a lot of value for your sound in there, not a lot of reverb, but actually with all the rhythmic writing in the concerto, it kind of works really well for that. And you can see the program behind me featuring other pieces. Other pieces are available, but Roger's piece right at the top. And I should just give a shout out for Making Music's Philip and Dorothy Green Young Artists Scheme, who are subsidising or part subsidising James's performance with us, which is a great scheme. And that's how we found you, James. And I saw Euphonium on the list and I thought, a brilliant opportunity to give Roger's piece a much long awaited and much deserved second outing. So Saturday 10th of February, there's a family concert at 4 p.m, which James has very kindly agreed to make an appearance in. I haven't asked him if what we've got planned for him yet, but we'll discuss that in due course. And then an evening concert at 7:30. And don't forget that if you have never heard a live orchestra in concert before, then you can get a free ticket with our very famous Concert Virgin scheme. You just turn up, no questions asked, just say, I've never heard a live orchestra. We'll hand you a free ticket on the spot. But it is wise to book in advance via the APO website, apo.org.uk. Thanks very much, chaps, and see you at the concert. I will see you at rehearsals at the weekend, James.
Absolutely. See you then.
Thanks a lot.